This lesson is an introduction to the Leadwerks editor. First, we're going to have a look at the Project Manager. Click on File and go to Project Manager. The Project Manager lists all projects that you've been making with the Leadwerks editor. You can create new ones, you can import existing ones, or export an existing project that you want to share with another programmer or level designer. By default, the Leadwerks editor has a My Game project which contains all tutorial files. If you double-click on it, it will open the folder which contains all project files and folders. By default, this will be installed to your Documents folder. If we click on OK, we will open this particular project. All assets that belong to this project will be loaded into the Assets tab. Let's open a scene. We automatically go to the Maps folder inside your project. We open the Editor Introduction map. This map will help us showing you how the Leadwerks editor works. First, let's focus us on the viewports. By default, there are 4 viewports visible, with a perspective camera, a top, back, and left camera. If we right-click in a perspective viewport, we can change several things, like the render mode. We could set it to wireframe, solid, and by default, the perspective mode is being set to textured and lighting. Lighting and shadows are being real-time rendered inside the Leadwerks editor. If you want to change to a single viewport, you can either right-click and go to Single Viewport, or you can press the F12 button. Press F12 again to the 4 viewports. This scene allows us to demonstrate how easy it is to use the Leadwerks editor. Let's first have a look at the viewports. The viewports are these 4 windows that you can see the scene through. We start off with the perspective viewport. The perspective viewport has the ability to fly around the scene and view the scene from all angles. If we right-click in a single viewport, we can change the render mode or render view to a different camera. We can also say that we want a single viewport instead of the 4 viewports currently visible. We can also do this by pressing F12. If we want to change the camera of a viewport, we can also right-click and say Render View Bottom, for instance. Let's go back to the perspective viewport and maximize it with F12. Movement inside a viewport, especially the perspective viewport, can be done with the mouse and keyboard. If we hold down the right mouse button, we can look around the scene. If we hold down our mouse wheel or third mouse button, we can pan. Use scrolling to zoom in and out. Technically, it's not really zooming, but we're simply moving the camera forward. We can also move our camera forward by using W and S. We can strafe our camera with A and D. We can also do this with the arrow keys. Use Q and E to move up or down. If you want to move a little bit faster down your scene, you can also hold the Shift key to increase the speed of your camera. In combination with scrolling, you can go extra fast. Let's go back to the 4 viewports. One very powerful feature of the Leadwerks editor is the creation of CSG objects. CSG stands for Constructive Solid Geometry, or simply said, very simple shapes that you can drag and drop inside the editor. Here on the left panel, the left toolbar, you can see several shapes. We can also go to the Objects tab, click on Primitives or Compound, and create the type that you want to create. Let's create a box. Here in the bottom, as we currently are, I'm just gonna hold down the left mouse button and I'm gonna drag a shape. When we release it, the object, or the CSG object, is automatically created. Another powerful feature of the Leadwerks engine and editor is the real-time lighting. Currently, this scene already has the default light, which is a directional light, which is this icon right here. A directional light is somewhat comparable with the sun. If we go to the Scene tab, you can see that the directional light is already in place. I'm going to move it a little so that we can see its icon. There we go. If we still have this directional light selected and we click on the rotate gizmo and we move it around, you can see that the directional light is being affected and the shadow changes. The light comes from a different angle. Let's remove the directional light. We can also use point lights and spotlights. A spotlight is a light that shines into one direction. We place it inside the scene and press enter. Now we can see in which direction the object is shining. Let's place it right, well, almost above the sphere. Here you can see the effect of a spotlight. The angles of the spotlight can be changed in the spotlight parameters. Instead of a spotlight, we can also have a point light. This is being created the same way as a spotlight. We click once somewhere in the scene, and then when we are satisfied with its first position, we press enter. We can then move it around. A point light shines in all directions, but has a limited range. This range can also be changed in the Properties panel. If you want to change the light's color, go to the Appearance tab, go to the Diffuse color, and for instance click blue. Let's remove this light, this one too, and create another directional light. There we go. The last thing that we cover in this tutorial is asset importing. Asset importing goes fully automatically. If we go to the Assets tab, you can see all assets that are being listed underneath this project that we currently have opened. If we right-click on one of these folders and we click on Open Folder, it will open the project folder on your computer and you can see which files are currently there. As soon as we create a new file or folder, it will be listed inside the Assets tab. Let's go to the Models folder. Currently, I have this really sweet looking folder which contains a lot of barrels, and I want to import them. So I'm going to open the Models folder. I'm also going to open the Barrels folder. The Barrel folder contains two models, which are FBX models, and it contains a couple of textures. These textures will be automatically converted as well as the models. Let's just copy this folder into this Models folder of our project. If we open this Barrel folder once again, you can see that we have a lot of extra files this time. We have an MDL file, we have a text file. Text files are automatically converted textures from the original texture that we have, and MDLs are the conversion of FBX models. We can close this folder and we can have a look at the Barrel folder. As you can see, it has been automatically created for us. Instead of dragging folders into your project, you can also directly drag it into the editor itself. If we click on the Barrel folder, you'll see that down here in the notification panel, that all kinds of actions have been automatically done for you, like importing, making thumbnails, and deleting textures that are no longer necessary. On the right Properties panel, you can see all the objects that have been imported. If we double-click on a model, we can view this model in the Model Editor. Same thing goes for textures, but this time we will show it in the Texture Editor. If we want to drag this model into our scene, we simply hold down our left mouse button and drag it on the place where we want to have it. Right now our model doesn't have a texture, and let's say we want this blue texture to be part of this model. In order to do so, we need to right-click on our texture and say Generate Material. A material that is being created automatically looks for all kinds of special extra textures like a diffuse map or a bump map. If it finds those textures, then it will also pick the correct shader. In this case, it only uses the diffuse shader and the diffuse texture. Once you've created the material, you can drag it onto this model. Any changes you make to this material will be automatically re-imported into the editor and applied into your scene. Let's demonstrate this by opening the barrel folder. Go to Barrel Blue Div, and let's say we are going to open this with Paint. Let's just draw some lines real quick on it. There we go. We save it. Close Paint. We also close the folder. We go back, and as you can see, all the changes that we've just made, the red lines that we've been drawing, they are being applied on the texture, on the material, and on the texture that we've applied on the model itself in our scene. This concludes this lesson of the Leadwerks engine.